Scorpio, there is something shifting within you, and you can feel it before you can name it. It does not arrive as a thought, nor as a clear idea you can explain. It moves through your body first, subtle, quiet, almost like a current rising from somewhere deep beneath the surface. You may notice it in the way your breath slows without effort, or how certain tensions you once carried so tightly begin to loosen on their own. This is not something you forced, and that is what makes it different. It feels unfamiliar, yet deeply known, as if your body has been waiting for this moment long before your mind could understand it. For a long time, your awareness has been sharp, observant, always scanning, always sensing what lies beneath people, beneath situations, beneath words. That depth became your strength, but it also kept you in a state of quiet alertness, where stillness always carried a trace of tension. Now, something within you is beginning to soften, not as a loss of power, but as a shift into a different kind of strength. This movement did not begin today. It has been forming beneath layers of experience, through every moment where you held yourself together, through every time you chose to endure, to understand, to go deeper instead of turning away. What you are feeling now is the surface of something that has been growing in silence. And what makes this moment different is that it does not ask you to analyze it. It does not require you to figure it out, to control it, or to define it too quickly. It asks for something much simpler and at the same time much harder. To feel it fully, without interruption. There is a kind of intelligence in this shift that lives beyond logic. It speaks through sensation, through the quiet signals in your body, through a sense of inner space that begins to open where there was once pressure. You may not have words for it yet, but you recognize its truth somewhere deeper than language. So for now, Scorpio, you do not need to chase clarity. You do not need to rush toward meaning. Let yourself stay here, in this subtle unfolding, where something within you is rising, gently but unmistakably. And for the first time in a long time, it feels like it is moving with you, not against you. There is a pattern in you that has been there for a long time, so familiar that it feels like instinct. You walk into a room and you already sense the emotional temperature before anyone speaks, picking up shifts in tone, pauses, glances, everything. This awareness gives you an edge, a quiet sense of control that keeps you one step ahead of what might unfold. Over time, this turned into something more than perception. It became a way of positioning yourself, of staying prepared, of making sure nothing catches you off guard. You learned how to stay composed on the surface while holding a deeper layer back, something private, something untouched. And it works. It keeps you steady, it keeps you grounded, it gives you the ability to move through intensity without losing yourself. But within that same structure, another pattern lives alongside it. A quiet pull towards something deeper, something more open, something that asks you to step beyond that controlled space. You feel it in moments where connection begins to deepen, where someone gets just a little closer than expected. Part of you leans in, drawn to the depth, to the realness of it. And at the same time, another part subtly tightens, recalibrates, adjusts the distance just enough to stay in control. This is where the tension lives, not on the surface, but underneath it. The desire to fully experience something, and the instinct to remain protected within it. Both are real, both are valid, and both have been shaping how you move through relationships, opportunities, even your own inner world. At the core of this is something very precise. Control for you has never been about dominance or power in the obvious sense. It has been about safety, about creating an environment where nothing unpredictable can reach too far in, where you can feel stable no matter what shifts around you. So when something begins to open, when life starts offering more, whether it is connection, opportunity, or even a sense of ease, your system does something automatic. It scans, it evaluates, it measures the risk, even when everything appears aligned. This is not hesitation, This is conditioning that has been refined over time. And here is where a deeper truth begins to surface. The very thing you are moving toward, the thing that feels like expansion, like abundance, like a deeper connection, it requires a different state entirely. Receiving asks for openness, and openness carries a level of exposure your system has not fully relaxed into yet. So the experience becomes layered. You are ready in ways you can see, in your growth, your awareness, your depth. And at the same time, your body still holds a quiet alertness, a subtle readiness to pull back, to adjust, to stay within a known range of safety. This is not a flaw, and it is not something to fix. It is simply the point where your evolution is meeting your history, where something new is asking to be felt in a way that goes beyond control. And just ahead of this awareness, something begins to shift. As we move into April 3rd to 4th, something begins to settle within you in a way that feels almost unfamiliar in its softness. It is not dramatic, not overwhelming, just a quiet shift where the constant inner tension starts to loosen its grip. You may not even recognize it at first, only noticing that something feels easier. There is a subtle change in how your body responds to things that once triggered immediate reaction. Situations that would have pulled you into analysis, into scanning, into quiet control, now pass through you with less resistance. The space between stimulus and response begins to widen, and within that space there is a new kind of calm. This is where the shift truly begins, not in what is happening around you, but in how your system is holding what happens. Your nervous system, which has been finely tuned for awareness and protection, starts to experience moments of safety without needing to create it manually. And in those moments, something deeper starts to come online. You may find yourself pausing without forcing it, breathing more fully without thinking about it, allowing things to unfold without immediately stepping in to adjust them. This is not passivity, it is a different form of presence, one that feels grounded yet open. A presence that does not rush to control because it senses stability from within. Clarity begins to emerge from this place, but it does not arrive as sharp conclusions or urgent realizations. It comes as a quiet knowing, a sense of what feels right without needing to explain why. When the body feels safe, the mind no longer needs to overwork to find certainty. There is also a lightness that starts to appear, subtle but noticeable. You may catch yourself feeling okay without a clear reason, experiencing moments where nothing needs to be fixed, nothing needs to be anticipated. That feeling, simple as it seems, is a sign that something fundamental is shifting. This period is not about external change, even if external changes begin to follow. It is about a recalibration of your internal state, a movement from guarded awareness into a more settled form of being. And as this state stabilizes, it begins to influence everything else in ways that feel natural rather than forced. You are not trying to become someone new here. You are allowing a different layer of yourself to take the lead, one that operates from steadiness instead of vigilance. And as this new rhythm starts to anchor itself within you, something else begins to respond from the outside, quietly aligning with what is now opening inside. As this new state begins to settle within you, the way life meets you starts to shift in quiet but noticeable ways. It does not arrive as something sudden or overwhelming, but as small openings, moments where things flow with less friction. What once required effort begins to feel more natural, as if the path is no longer resisting your movement. You may notice opportunities appearing in places where you were not actively searching. A conversation leads somewhere unexpected, an idea turns into something tangible, a door opens without you needing to push it. These moments carry a different texture, one that feels aligned rather than forced, as if they are meeting you at the level you are now holding within yourself. Money, in its own way, begins to reflect this shift as well. It moves with more ease, with less tension attached to it, no longer carrying the same underlying pressure. Instead of feeling like something you must constantly manage or secure, it starts to feel like a resource that responds to your state, expanding when you are open, flowing when you are steady. And then there is connection, which reveals the change even more clearly. The way you relate to others begins to soften, not in intensity, but in how that intensity is expressed. You are still deep, still perceptive, but there is more space around it, more room for presence instead of constant calibration. You may find yourself staying in moments a little longer, allowing someone to see more of you without immediately adjusting the distance. Conversations feel less like something to navigate and more like something to experience. The energy between you and others becomes less about control and more about shared presence. This is where love begins to take on a different form. It no longer feels like something that needs to be contained or protected at all times. It starts to unfold in an environment where trust grows naturally, where connection deepens through openness rather than through carefully maintained boundaries. At a deeper level, something fundamental is shifting in how you relate to receiving itself. It is no longer about attracting more, proving your worth, or positioning yourself in the right way. It becomes about allowing, about creating enough internal space for what is already moving toward you to actually arrive. You begin to realize that abundance has never been separate from you. It responds to how much of it you can hold without tightening, without pulling back, without bracing for impact. The more your system relaxes into stability, the more life expands to meet that stability. It feels like moving from a closed room into an open landscape, where there is air, light, and room to move freely. Nothing needs to be forced open anymore, because the space itself is already available. And as you continue to stand in this openness, something even deeper begins to take shape within you, preparing you for the next shift that is ready to emerge. This is the point where something becomes clear in a way you can no longer overlook. The version of you that once moved through life in a constant state of readiness is no longer leading in the same way. You can feel it, not as a concept, but as a shift in how you hold yourself from within. Control once shaped how you navigated everything, how you connected, how you decided, how you protected what mattered to you. It gave you structure, it gave you strength, it gave you a sense of certainty in unpredictable spaces. And for a long time, that way of being served a real purpose. But something deeper is taking its place now. Trust is beginning to anchor itself where control once stood, not as something fragile, but as something steady and grounded. It does not need to anticipate every outcome because it rests in a different kind of knowing. You are no longer moving from a place of survival. That constant undercurrent of needing to stay prepared, to stay aware, to stay one step ahead, begins to dissolve into something more expansive. In its place, there is a sense of creation, where your energy is no longer used to guard, but to build. This is where your power transforms. It is no longer found in how tightly you can hold everything together, but in how fully you can stand within yourself while remaining open. There is strength in that openness, a kind of stability that does not depend on control to sustain itself. You may notice that you no longer feel the same urgency to prove, to secure, or to define everything before it unfolds. There is a quiet confidence in simply being present, in allowing things to meet you without immediately shaping them. That presence carries more power than force ever could. And this is the shift that changes everything, even before anything visibly changes. When you stop organizing your life around protection, your entire experience of it begins to reorganize itself around expansion. What you once held tightly begins to move more freely through you. Scorpio, this is where your identity evolves in a way that feels both unfamiliar and deeply true. You are still intense, still perceptive, still deeply aware. But now there is space within that depth, a steadiness that allows you to remain rooted without closing. You are becoming someone who can hold depth without tension, who can experience intensity without needing to control it. That is a different kind of power, one that feels less like resistance and more like alignment. And as this version of you continues to take shape, something within you settles into that truth more fully, preparing you to stand in it with a quiet certainty that no longer needs to be questioned. There is a quiet clarity that begins to settle in after everything you have moved through. It does not arrive as a conclusion or as something you need to define. It feels more like a deep exhale, a sense that something within you has finally found its natural place. When you look back, even briefly, you can see how every phase carried its own purpose. The moments that felt heavy, the times you held everything together, the layers you built to protect yourself, all of it shaped the foundation you are standing on now. Nothing was wasted, everything became structure. And now, that structure no longer feels like something you have to maintain with effort. It holds on its own. You stand within it differently, not as someone guarding it, but as someone who lives inside it with ease. This is where the shift becomes real in the simplest way. You are no longer moving towards something in the distance, trying to reach it, trying to secure it. You are already within it, already aligned with the version of yourself that once felt just out of reach. There is a steadiness here that does not need to prove itself. It does not need validation. It does not need confirmation from the outside. It exists in how you carry yourself, in the way you respond, in the space you allow within your own life. You may notice how different it feels to stand in your own energy without adjusting it to match anything around you. There is a quiet strength in that, something grounded and open at the same time. It is not rigid, it flows, but it remains rooted in something real. Scorpio, this is the moment where everything you have been becoming starts to feel natural to you. It no longer feels like growth you have to work toward. It feels like a state you inhabit, a way of being that reflects who you are now, not who you were. And within this space, there is no urgency to rush forward. There is room to experience, to notice, to let things meet you as they come. Life begins to unfold around you in a way that feels less like something to manage and more like something to live. The door you have been sensing, the one that felt distant or just out of reach, it has always been here. What has changed is your readiness to walk through it, to stand on the other side without looking back for confirmation. You carry a different kind of certainty now. It is not loud, it does not demand attention, but it is steady. A quiet knowing that you can trust where you are and trust what is opening from here. So if you feel this space within you, this calm that holds depth without tension, allow yourself to stay with it. Let it expand, let it guide you, let it show you what becomes possible when you no longer hold yourself back from what is already yours. And if this message resonates with something real inside you, you can support this space by sharing it with someone who may be standing at the same threshold. You can leave a like as a quiet signal of alignment and subscribe to continue walking this path of awareness together. If you are ready to step into this version of yourself, let that intention land fully within you, and if it feels right, write it below. I rise and receive.